Hi guys, and welcome to my review of the Microsoft Lumia 640 XL. I already reviewed this 640 and I was pleasantly surprised by how well a budget phone can perform in daily life. But how about the 640 XL? And actually I think the difference is bigger than what you see on paper, because you see a bigger display, a bigger battery and a better camera. But I think if you take a closer look, the difference is actually bigger. In a positive way though. So let's check this and check the design first. What we got here is a 5.7 incher compared to a 5.2 incher. Of course, it is wider, it is taller, and actually it's also thicker, even though this one has the slightly bigger battery. But this one costs at least 500 euros and this one just 200. So there's a big difference here. But before I'm going to talk about the rest, I wanted to talk about the finish, because I think there is a really big difference. I have the white matte one here. The 640 I had was a glossy one. And everyone just says pick the color you want, but actually I think the difference is way bigger, because the matte one has a better overall grip, but it has a few downsides, because as you can see here, maybe it is visible on the video, it picks up dirt, because at my daily job I have dirty hands and it did pick up. I tried to clean it up as good as I could, but still there is some dirt visible. Of course, the matte one, if you take a darker color, it maybe won't be as visible, but there is also other difference, because the glossy one has like this lacquered finish where all the edges were very rounded. Here though, on the matte one, we can see we have not sharp but hard edges, and this is definitely noticeable once you have it in your hand. It is more secure in the hand, but therefore it just feels a little bit more edgy, not as comfortable. So I would say go for the glossy one if you want a more comfortable feel. Go for the matte one if you want the more secure feel in the hand, the more grippy feel in the hand, but therefore the device will get a little bit more dirty. And I also had this, if you can maybe see it, slight little nick, and I have no clue how it actually happened, because it was always either in my pockets or maybe on my couch or bed or so. So that's it. But otherwise, in terms of size, okay, we have a little bit of big bezels. For a budget device, this is still okay, but still I would have wished for a little bit smaller ones, but that is to be expected from a budget device. The rest, I just think the Lumia design works very nice. It is elegant, it is very clean, minimalistic, not a lot going on here. As for the buttons, the power button I think is a little bit too hard to press, but therefore it clicks very nice. The volume rocker is a bit of an odd thing, because the upper button, as you can see here, clicks very nice and has a nice tactile feedback. The volume down button though doesn't click as much and feels way more mushy. So if all the buttons would have had the tactile and clicky feedback of the upper button, I would have been super happy, but it's still great, because most people won't even use the power button, because you have double tap to wake and you have for the navigation bar double tap to sleep, so you are covered here as well. As for the ports, here we have the headphone jack on the top, and on the bottom we have the micro USB, nothing on the left side. On the back we have the speaker, the camera and the flash. So overall I have to say it still feels very nice in the hand. Of course it is bigger and you will have to use it more with two hands. I noticed that for sure. It was often possible to use it with one hand, but then I had, for example, trouble getting the back button. But I also had this, for example, on the Note, which is smaller, but they have to make it a little bit more to the right side for easier reach, or maybe get the buttons more narrow. But the device still feels very solid, very sturdy, even though I had this little nick. But for this price, it still feels like at least $100 or $200 more. I think I've covered this, so let's check the display right now. What do we have here? We have a 5.7 inch IPS display with a 720p resolution. I still think for a Windows device it does hold up very nice in terms of resolution, because everything is still readable. Windows does a really good job in handling fonts, so nothing looks really blurry. In a zoomed out view in a browser, of course it will be noticeable still, but it is still not that bad. The other thing I like a lot here on this device is the maximum brightness. That one is very impressive. Let's check, where is it here. The white is very nice white point, ever so slightly on the yellow side, but nothing to really adjust here. It is done very well. But it's the maximum brightness I like so much, because even in direct sunlight everything was still visible. You did see the LCD pattern though, but that is not to be changed. The black levels quite deep, not super deep, but because I mostly think because of the very bright panel, therefore it just had to make the trade-off for the blacks. Colors though are very nice, naturally saturated, and you still have a very great contrast, see all the little details, and my camera won't even do it justice because you see pretty much every little detail. The viewing angles also very solid. I was very impressed with the viewing angles actually. They look better in reality than here on the video, but on the 640 I noticed the viewing angles weren't that impressive, but still okay. But here they were super solid, way more solid. The maximum brightness I was very happy for. And what I also like, and this should be a must-have on any other system, we have color profiles available, and that really should be a must-have, because the overall experience is just so much better if you can adjust the colors to your liking. Because I personally prefer the vivid mode instead of the standard mode, have a slightly bit more saturated display. So why don't you give me this option? Microsoft does this and I'm really happy about it. So what about the sound? Let's check it now. I think it is pretty obvious, backfiring speakers, so not the best experience for sure. Terms of maximum volume, once reflected maybe on a desk or with your hand, it is okay, but as you saw in mid-air it just loses a lot of maximum volume, also pretty much the sound in overall gets worse. But otherwise I'm still thinking the sound isn't the best. It is a little bit better than on the 640, it is a little bit louder, it is a little bit richer, but it's still quite flat. The good thing though is you have, and that is same as on the display part already, a really nice thing, you have an equalizer that works system-wide, so you can adjust the sound, you can boost the bass a little bit, the highs or something like that. It won't make a huge ton of a difference, but it is so nice to have that option, and if you use the headphones then you will appreciate it even more. So I'm saying the sound isn't the best, but it gets the job done still more than just fine. Okay, let's check the performance here, and let's go into a Twitter app for example. It will resume. That is just a habit of the 1 GB. I would wish for 2 GB, but as you can see here, super smooth, and I'm actually almost thinking it isn't really necessary to show that off, because it is a Windows phone device and they always run super smooth, as you can see here. And it is only pretty much due to 1 GB of RAM, the multitasking that is a little bit handicapped or limited, call it whatever you want. Otherwise the browser here works also fine as well. So as on pretty much all the other devices I reviewed so far on Windows Phone, which actually is only the 840, 830 and the 640. It is super smooth. It is not really snappy because Windows Phone just still has these long transitions, long animations. If they would get rid of that, I would be way more happy because the overall device would feel just more lightweight and more snappy. But therefore it is extremely buttery smooth, and if that is important for you, then this is the right device. As for the battery life, sorry, I have to say this time I actually forgot to note down the charging times, but I would expect about at least 3.5 hours because the 640 already needed 3 hours and 10, and this one has a 3000 milliamp hour battery, so maybe even close to 4 hours, which isn't a big problem though because of the amazing battery life. Just a few stats right now. Over the course of one day, I got quite easily 6 hours of screen on time. That was with heavy use, something I don't usually do. Over the course of 2 days, I got 5 hours of screen on time. That is impressive because even the best one I had so far was about at 4 hours on 2 days. And that's maybe one of the most impressive things. 3 full days of use and I managed to get slightly more than 4 hours of screen on time. Yes, and that with a brightness on the medium setting. But I think this is extremely impressive because of the almost non-existent standby drain of Windows Phone. And since we have this 3000 milliamp hour battery, it can spare a lot of this because standby drain is no issue at all. And I'm extremely impressed by the multi-day battery life because, okay, 6 hours on one day isn't super impressive, but 5 hours over 2 days and 4 over 3 days. And you can even get better results if you lower the brightness or use auto brightness. But As for right now, from all the devices I've tested, this is the beast in terms of battery, can't be topped. As for the software, yeah, there is not really that much to show. We have still Windows 8. I can't wait for Windows 10 actually. But you see pretty much it is still a little bit cluttered. You can jump between those now, which you couldn't do before. But otherwise, you get pretty much all the apps you would need. And like I said, what I really like on Windows phones, color profiles, sound profiles. Otherwise, in terms of apps, I get pretty much all I need right now. Maybe except of some Google services, but we all know who's to blame for that. But I'm almost not really that interested in Windows 8 anymore because Windows 10 is so close. And I can't wait to get my hands on a Windows 10 device. Okay, I could just flash it here, but it's the preview and I did it and it just doesn't perform yet that well. But I think once Windows 10 will be there and the universal apps, then the software could be even so much better. Okay. Let's get to the camera right now, and I will just check them on my iPad so we see the same pictures. Okay, the first picture here, it is done very nicely, but as you can see, the reds are oversaturated and just overexposed. So it didn't do the best job in terms of the reds, but therefore the rest of the colors and the sharpness overall is very nicely done. Here, once again, it did get the job a little bit better done, but still the reds are overblown. Here, once again, same picture as well. Here, for example, the pink got done very nice. I would maybe wish for slightly sharper overall images, but here's the one thing I have to actually mention. This, for me, the camera on the 640 XL is already a flagship camera. So if I will complain during this camera review right now, I'm already complaining on a flagship level. So don't forget that, because it wouldn't be fair to compare this with a budget phone camera because the camera is so much better. Here for this next picture, you can see it did it very well, but the red already got overblown. Here, overexposed, but it is okay. Here though, everything's balanced out very nicely. The colors look very accurate, very sharp. Here, once again, same thing, nothing to complain, really well done. Here, once again as well, the whole picture is really nicely done in focus, very sharp, accurate colors, nice and vivid. And I really like how accurate those colors actually are, not getting overblown, because some of the pictures maybe don't look as spectacular as they do, for example, on Galaxy S6, but they look way more accurate. But then once again, we also get some pictures sometimes that look like this one, or maybe this one, where it just doesn't work properly. But I notice whenever I do these two shots, every camera for some reason fails. I'm not sure why. But we also get then pictures like this one, where I think the leaf has so much detail and it is really impressive how well it is done. Same for this picture here as well, just nicely done. Here on this picture, I would wish for a little bit more sharpness because it is quite done nicely in terms of focus, but just not perfect. Here is one thing I'm a bit oddly surprised because the top of the flower isn't in focus where the smaller parts on the bottom are. That is same thing here. The flower on the left is in focus, even though I wanted the big one in the middle on the focus, but still a nice shot. Here you see the overexposure that just happens sometimes in sunny daylight. The next picture here is done very, very nicely, and you can see all the details in the clouds, so that is done just great. Same here as for the tree, you still see the clouds, everything is nicely balanced. On the next picture here as well, slightly overexposed but still great. Here, the next picture, you can see the yellow is same as the red before, a little bit overblown, but otherwise the picture is really nice. Once we get a little bit closer, you can see all the little details in the flower, which has been done really nicely. And on this picture, you can see even the small little details on the stick of the flower. Very nicely done. Here as well, you can see all the grains and all the stones have all the details you would need. Accurate colors, all done very well. One thing I like a lot on the next picture here is how much detail there is in the clouds and on the trees and on the stones. Same here as well. Just done really nicely. The clouds just impress overall. If you get to the next picture now, you can see the yellow has been done way better. Very sharp on the next picture here as well. The overall sharpness is very nice, slightly maybe oversaturated in terms of the yellow, but it therefore looks very nice. Same here as well. On this picture, I would wish for a little bit more sharpness overall, but it has been done very great. This picture though is pretty much not to be improved, because you see the tree, all the leaves still, but with a bright background with the clouds that have all the little details and nothing is overexposed here. Same on this picture again, really done beautiful. On this picture though, you see it has been slightly overexposed. Everything looks a little bit too bright, but still done job, right? Here it was done way better. So it is a little bit of a hit and miss and a little bit of overexposed here as well. So I guess it was obvious. I took a little bit more time for the camera review this time because I noticed so many people actually would go for a Windows phone on a budget phone if they can get a great camera experience. And I can already tell you, you will definitely not be able to find an Android device for this price that comes even close in terms of the camera quality. Maybe if you even come from Android and aren't adjusted to Windows Phone yet, but want a great camera experience, then the 640 or even way more better, the 640 XL will be your fit, because you get a lot of phone for not a lot of money. And before I'm going to talk longer, let's take this for the final words and get to my recap now. Build quality and design. Okay, it is a little bit, not really heavy, but bigger for sure, with slightly bigger bezels. Quite sturdy. It's of course still a personal preference if you want the glossy or the matte one. I personally would go for the glossy one, even though this one, it has a slightly potato feel. That is something I personally don't like. But design, very beautiful I think still, and for the price it definitely feels a lot more like it should be more expensive. Display, very nice. Really great white point, quite nice deep blacks in a little bit of a trade-off for the high brightness, and I can live with that because we have a very bright panel and therefore the blacks aren't the best ones. Still very good though. Colors, absolutely great. If you want them to be accurate, true to life, you can get that. If you want them to be a little bit more saturated, more vivid, more brilliant, you can get that as well thanks to the software. So a way better display compared to the 640. The 640 had a really nice display, but this one is, for the price you pay, even a lot better. Sound slightly better than the 640 XL, a little bit louder, but still not the best one. It will get the job done for sure, no problems, but it could have been done better, and maybe even on the front, because we have a lot of front. In terms of performance, pretty much the same as all the before phones I tested on Windows Phone. Very smooth, very consistent, slightly limited multitasking capabilities due to 1 GB of RAM, but that's pretty much it. You get still a great performance and you get the overall experience that is undeniably there. As for the battery life, yes, this is a battery beast. If you don't use your phone on one day that much, you can get, I think pretty sure, 3 or 4 days of use out of it with no problems. If you use it with moderate use, I don't see even 2 days as a problem. And to kill it on one day, you have to be a hardcore user. So the battery, definitely the highlight, and maybe the second highlight then already would be the camera. And I'm not really talking a lot about the software here because Windows 8, latest updates, everything works well, solid, stable. You get all the apps you would need, except of a few exceptions. But let's talk about the camera. The camera is top notch. It could have been maybe be a little bit sharper sometimes. Sometimes also some things weren't quite in focus. I didn't show this on the video part, but when I wanted to focus something in the middle of the screen, it sometimes did focus actually something outside of the center, but no really big issue. But yeah, you get a lot of phone here, and that's why I wanted to go to my final words. Is it recommendable? Oh yes it is, because for $200, and I even saw this one already for $170, it is extremely impressive what you get for the amount of money. You get a solid device with a great display, okay sound, the same performance as you get on any other Windows phone, but therefore you get this incredibly long-lasting battery with the amazing camera. If you will be find a better complete package for this price, I highly doubt it. Of course it is bigger, but I also know a lot of people have been waiting for a big, affordable budget device that performs overall just amazing, and I think they got this with this device here. So I'm not really sure what else to say. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Please rate, subscribe and comment. Until next time, bye.